who is an extremely famous chef, even though popular dishes, when passed through Fawn's hands, become strangely delicious. Rustic dishes like chicken, Fawn must also make it so delicious that it can be eaten. The king got a good reputation suddenly. He quickly opened 7 restaurants, but in business, there is no need to say that customers often have to queue from morning to night to come in and eat. Suddenly today, there is a Vietnamese talent who refuses to finish. If you see that, send him out and line him up, make this guy go crazy. I will hire the best chef in the world to fight you. At the same time, in faraway England, there is a very good chef with very good cooking. And his presentation is also very eye-catching. Even the British royal family only personally came to cook for him. The queen tasted it quickly, couldn't bear to beg Bond to stay and cook for the rest of her life, but he was not alone. Simple so, because the merchant comes from a Chinese background, his dream is still to return to China to open the largest restaurant chain. On the first day he returns to the mainland, he left the seafood market and wanted to buy an unfortunate grouper. Buying this fish, the owner immediately sold it to a Fawn trader, annoyed, but the boss said that this fish can only be cooked by a Fawn, so it is delicious for people who do not know how to cook. It is a waste of money. Fish again. 2 people have a match to see who can fight this fish better. They will use their imaginations to participate in a battle. A Fawn take the middle part of the fish and sprinkle it with fermented tofu sauce, roll the fish with green onions and then grill it. On this dish is sure to be amazing, but it's definitely not medium. First use seasoning to marinate the fish. Then use red oranges and carrots and onions, add a little wine, and then wrap in white paper. Grilled fish body in half an hour is a great product to prevent 2 people from scooping each other. The owner quickly cut the fish in half after that incident, sold it and opened a restaurant opposite a Fawn's restaurant, a luxurious restaurant with white main color. Immediately after the grand opening, all the customers of the Afong restaurant came to see. Even the president of the Chinese Food Association himself came to open the eyes of Afong's lover, bringing out the pots and pans, causing the director to panic. The restaurant of the subject has to go out to challenge it. Or at this time, Aruma also appeared, so Volume faced Afon with 2 people, so the high-low division fought right in the middle of the road, this time about the skill of using a knife to use a knife. The god of surfing has split the salmon in half, then just stroked the flesh and immediately remembered where the bones were. Just picked it up without looking at the people around. It's Afon's turn. His knife skills are of course also top-notch on fish, like a comet that flies through the sky in the blink of an eye. Each piece of salmon is cut without a millimeter difference. Must commend the excellent knife technique. Everyone is KY Fun Geek, the president of the cuisine, immediately asked 2 people to participate in the food god contest. If anyone wins, they can keep the restaurant. If they lose, they will have to close the door and let others. Both agree to fight because the survival of his restaurant was unexpected. The next day, on an interview with a Chinese food dealer that was too conservative a few decades past, the dishes still haven't changed at all. The people of Afamf, of course, angry because anyway he is also famous for traditional Chinese food. Since the day Afon's restaurant with a basin opened, less and less customers. 2 people from the second floor look down and see the customers are still alive. Understand why the business is 10 times more expensive than me, but the customers are still crowded. Even the next day the grouper shop was sold out. The owner said that we bought it for the price, so we sold it all. And then Afon felt more and more confused because of the customers. Volt's family only uses cars, so they take up all the seats of the male lead's restaurant, making Afon's staff angry and can't do anything. Go there. Afon and his lover decide to go to Bond's restaurant to try. 2 people who want to see the food. How delicious. The restaurant first brought out 2 omelets. The girl was extremely skeptical. There was gold inside. No one suspected that when they tasted it. They immediately fell in love with it, quickly tried a piece and thought it was an omelet again. It was mango and cold wash water. The 2 people had not yet recovered. The second dish brought up a pot of plants. While the 2 people were stunned, the store manager took boiling water to water the potted plants, and suddenly saw plants in it grow up so fast. The manager even laughed and said that they were all edible, but when he came here, he got angry and burst into the kitchen. I came here to eat, not to see him do magic. Everyone was scared, but Bond was okay. Quietly asked everyone to go out and then took out a piece of beef and wanted to compete with Afon for a game. This is excellent Wagyu beef. Do you know how to cook? Fawn looks at the storage temperature of the beef and immediately has a way. I saw him cut onions into short pieces. Then put it in the oil pan while cutting the beef, while keeping an eye on the onions in the pan. Then put the onions on the island in the iron plate, add a little sesame oil and finally pour the beef into it. With a huge fire, stir with spices. Within exactly 30 seconds, very quickly a super delicious dish has been released. The beef is both hot and tender, extremely delicious, and it's the father's turn to take the flamethrower and bake it right. 1 minute stop and then cut into 3 large pieces to put on a plate with vegetables below and then cover. The next part new is the most important part. Trader light a match to light applewood humus to let smoke inside. Cook beef with smoke from applewood makes the beef soft and brings with it a scent of herbs. This is an exclusive method. Without thinking, he thinks Chinese food is outdated. In the next contest I will definitely win the dish. When he ate up, he knew he'd lost. He didn't say anything. He quietly left. No one expected Bond to stay. Tasting a piece of Afong's beef, he was amazed. In his entire life, he had never eaten such delicious food. Fawn's side was sad and bored because he sat there. A corner remembers the old story. It turns out that when he was a child, Thai Onion was in the hands of his father, angry, scolded, and didn't even let him in the kitchen anymore. He cursed that if he couldn't do it, why cook? The father himself is also a chef. Because of the piece of rice, he gave a form to his adoptive uncle. Despite his anger, the father still left home alone to go abroad to cook. Now he is a food god himself. He won the God of War 3 times in a row. Next, he suspected when the reporter asked Afong if he was his son, because he wanted to hide his body, so he vehemently refused to watch it. Seeing that he was extremely angry, he promised himself that he would definitely defeat his father in the future. To do this must win first. Very quickly the two faced each other in the final of the national cooking competition. This competition was very important, so it was a very tense round. He took out a duck that was whiter than his future. I broke all the duck bones with my bare hands, then took a sharp knife and poked them inside to filter the bones. After a while, using a skillful knife, Afong just pulled the meat and bones slightly separated, then inserted, put all kinds of ingredients in the duck's belly and add some golden water, finally wrap the duck in a lotus leaf outside, then use a layer of powder to wrap it up. Afong takes it out in front of a huge giant pot and pours a salted bird's nest using a large toothed shovel to heat the salt evenly, finally put the duck in the salt area and bake it for a while. Afong used a skewer to bring the duck out in front of the audience's cheers. Afong smashed the duck with a knife handle. This dry lotus leaf opens the fragrant golden duck inside is Yunnan's Tylene, carrying the essence of the mountains and forests. All the yin and yang of heaven and earth are harmonized in the duck. The judges only try one piece and immediately freeze. Never in my life have I eaten such delicious food. But Afong's competitors are not far behind. He wants to make French foie gras first using foil, wrap it, and then pour hot water around it. Bake in the microwave as soon as it's cooked, again using ice to pour around. The next is the most important step. He uses a flamethrower to bake for 30 seconds, then use a super hot knife to cut into pieces for sugar, and then pan to cook into caramel pieces. Put a piece dried pineapple below using a flamethrower to caramelize the shield. He chose the last piece of foie gras was a spoonful of raspberries garnished with 4 berries that were beautifully decorated. Judges tasted one piece at once, appreciated the fight. Both of them excellently performed the assessment of the subject judges with the first 37 reference points, both giving Afong a higher score than anyone expected. The head of the final judging panel to give it on only 8 points, leading to 2 people equal. The score is indistinguishable, but to find the winner, the head of the jury thinks that Afong does not present well. He declares that Pon has won the match, that Bo will do. The representative of the world cooking competition heard here. Afong angrily left the past, abandoned by his father. Once again the loser, he had to close the shop all day to play video games. He was here let go one, but did not represent the restaurant in the competition yesterday. He won in fact because the boss bribed the head of the jury. It turned out that Bun's girlfriend soon sold her body to the boss. Miss also told the secret that Bon has lost his sense of taste. Bon cooks so well, all based on a notebook. With this book, his girlfriend will replace him to participate in the food god trade contest, and his boss fired him at the same time. Robbed his girlfriend in front of Bon, causing his wife's pain to leave him, sitting sadly on the street drinking alcohol to relax. Afong had just passed here. After a while confiding, the 2 boys gave up their revenge and decided to take their revenge. Join forces together to use Bon's position to participate in a worldwide cooking competition, both to take revenge on Bolt's restaurant and to avenge his father's revenge. At the same time, Afong's restaurant is being forced to sell by the director. If you don't sell them, it's easy to get a license. The situation is extremely difficult to say at a critical time and rush back to the subject to officially declare that you will participate in the competition and headbutt the director's mouth. They were all very resistant to the tycoons, but only had to give up the next day. Bon and Avuong exchanged skills with 2 people. Thanks to that, it improved very quickly. The world culinary competition came to the participating teams. The family are all superstar chefs, including their ex-lovers. The competition begins. The chefs frantically prepare their own expensive ingredients. Afong Lai's team is engrossed in blending soybeans into smooth water. The other chefs all prepare super delicious dishes. They are special and have to be extremely skilled to be able to do this. Afong is still busy making tofu, but this is the famous Sichuan mama tofu. This dish is simple. It's simple, but it's very difficult to make it delicious. But the ex-girlfriend uses her notebook to make molecular oysters. She has exactly the same recipe in the book, but by the time the teams have finished, the judges have eaten. Every dish is delicious, but ba tofu looks simple, so it is eaten last. Who knows when the judges taste it immediately declare Afong and Bon is the winner, that their dish hides a lot of interesting things. Mix chili into tofu like Van Thatch. They make a lot of beef juice plus ginger juice on onions. Just put it in the mouth. The taste immediately explodes. This method makes it difficult for anyone who has eaten it. Get Kwan. The most important thing is that they keep the original Sichuan dish. In addition to the spicy taste, it also has an indescribable feeling of pangolin. Not only beautiful presentation of the taste is really delicious. Really 2 people deserve to win, but according to the current law now only 1 person can fight the god of food who thinks he can't win. So he wants to give up the fight to Afong. 3 days later, when the god of food has arrived, it is also fighting the father who always despises and forbidden. Afong's cooking room meets his father again, but he seems nervous, but the father is extremely confident and has just started preparing continuously while Afong is still thinking for a long time that he has not done anything, making the audience watching also feeling stressed. It turns out that Afong is thinking about all his childhood and wants to make a dish full of childhood memories, but thinking about it, his father splashed in a glass of water to wake up and then started to frantically knead the dough, waited for a while, then pulled it into a noodle, intended to cook instant noodles on the side of the food god. It was something red, then came with a yellow sauce. Finally made it into a very eye-catching dish very quickly. It's over when it was time to make the food god dish. It was brought to the judge to eat before it not only had the sweetness of sugar but the cool taste of mint also filled his mouth. Next came a Fong's dish, but he did not bring it to the judge, and this is the noodle dish that I gave to my father 20 years ago. A Fong used to cook it for my father. But that day, my father did not eat it and went abroad. Food God brought it up to send a feeling of father and son love, in which the father immediately finished eating. It turns out that this is exactly what Fong needs you to just go home without caring about the results. Only the food God stays and eats while crying. It turns out that the highest realm of the dish is to create for people. Eat feeling happiness, the taste of friendship from the mouth to the heart. Since that day, the restaurant has more customers than before. Fong and Bon made a friendship with the two of you to help the food street become famous throughout the country. The movie is coming to an end. If you find it interesting, please subscribe to my channel. Bye bye.